What separates the human from the divine? It is not the body, nor is it time. It is forgetfulness. The forgetfulness that we are gods, and that our soul is as ancient as the very creation of the universe. Among all the spiritual traditions that have tried to remind humans of their celestial origins, few are as complete, as deep, and as dangerously revealing as Hermeticism. In modern life, hectic, superficial, and saturated with stimuli, most people seek immediate relief for pains that ask to be heard, not rushed. But the Hermeticist is not seeking relief. He doesn't want ready-made answers or formulas. He seeks the key that opens the final door. And that key is not found in books, gurus, or doctrines. It rests in the innermost core of the being, wrapped in 7 veils. Finding it is not a journey outward, but a continuous plunge inward. This video is a map, not a manual. A map for those who wish to live as true Hermeticists amidst the concrete of cities, the electricity of smartphones, the digital noise of sleeping masses. If you've made it this far, perhaps you're ready to remember. There is something unbearable about silence to a mind conditioned to live in noise. Most people, when freed from external sounds, quickly fill the void with thoughts, memories, worries, or projections. We cannot bear silence because it reveals us, and most are not prepared to see themselves without masks. But silence is not emptiness, it is presence, a living, fertile field where everything true can emerge. In Hermetic traditions, silence is more than a virtue. It is a spiritual technology, a science of inner listening. In the inner chambers of Egyptian temples, the neophyte's first portal was not of words, but of absence. Upon entering the mysteries, the initiate was deprived of stimuli, confined to darkness and absolute silence. There, in what would seem like punishment to the modern man, the channel of communication with the invisible world began to open. As the Book of the Dead taught, the silence of the heart is the dwelling place of the gods. Hermes Trismegistus, master of masters, understood silence as the womb of the Logos, the matrix of the creative word. Before anything can be spoken, it must be heard, and only in silence can listening become pure. Modern science, though hesitant before the invisible, is beginning to glimpse the depths of this ancient practice. Research conducted by the Institute for Cognitive Sciences at the University of Helsinki revealed that 2 minutes of absolute silence is enough to activate brain zones responsible for emotional processing and sensory integration more intensely than long periods of music. In other words, silence reorganizes. But the Hermeticist is not satisfied with surface silence. He seeks not only silence of the environment, but silence of the mind, and deeper still, silence of the identity. That silence that arises when there is no longer an I trying to control, interpret, understand. The silence in which the being surrenders to the flow of the all. The Corpus Hermeticum declares, "Renounce the word if you wish to hear the divine word." This is not poetic metaphor, it is direct instruction. What we call the voice of God, higher intuition, or gnosis, cannot be heard while the mind is full of itself. To live as a Hermeticist in modern times, therefore, requires the deliberate creation of spaces of silence, not as escape, but as communion, not as passivity, but as invocation of the real. Silence then becomes a practice, an invisible laboratory where consciousness is refined. It is in stillness that the alchemist begins to distill the dense vapors of the ego, until only the essence remains, clear, formless, nameless. Meditation, when practiced in the Hermetic light, is not an exercise in concentration, but an offering of attention. The goal is not to silence the mind by force, but to listen beyond it. As Plotinus, direct heir of the Hermetic lineage through the Neoplatonic tradition, said, "The mind must become blind to see with the light of the soul." In Hermetic practice, silence is also the first step of the ritual. No force is invoked, no sigil is drawn, no sacred name pronounced unless the space has been silenced, inside and out, because the word only holds power when it is born from a pure womb. The modern Hermeticist, even wrapped in the routines of the city, cultivates this silence as a priest tends the altar. He wakes before the crowd, not to be productive, but to listen. He walks in silence, eats in silence, contemplates in silence, not as habit, but as right. Because he knows that silence is the only mirror where truth can reflect without distortion. And little by little, silence ceases to be a moment of the day and becomes a state of being. The body moves, the voice speaks, tasks are completed, but within, silence remains. A still center within the whirlwind of the world. This is the first step. Without it, all spiritual seeking is just noise in disguise. But with it, even the simplest gesture, drinking a glass of water, gazing at the sky, washing the dishes, can become a sacred act. Silence is not the opposite of the word. It is its cradle. And it is there that the Hermeticist begins to remember who he is. Long before the body was seen as a machine, it was perceived as a temple. And long before it was a temple, it was understood as a mirror of the cosmos, a mirror of the soul, a mirror of the laws. The Hermeticist walks this ancient path, where the body is neither object nor obstacle, but a portal, a living laboratory where the great work unfolds. The Hermetic tradition never turned away from the body. Unlike spiritual systems that see it as impure or unworthy, the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus affirm that the body is the visible manifestation of the invisible. As written in the Emerald Tablet, "That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above, to accomplish the miracles of the One." The body is this sacred below. In it are reflected the archetypes of the soul. The heart is the inner sun, the liver, the warrior Mars, the kidneys, the balance of Libra. This is not pop astrology, but a profound vision of the body as microcosm, the incarnation of subtle forces in organized matter. But how to live this vision in a world that treats the body as a tool for production or, at best, an object of display? The answer is simple: by reconsecrating it. The Hermeticist consecrates the body daily, not with external rituals, but with inner attitudes. He eats as if feeding a god. He breathes as if invoking a spirit. He moves with awareness, knowing that gesture is the expression of will in matter. Alchemy teaches that every process of transmutation requires a vessel, a pure and sealed container in which the elements can be distilled, purified, and reintegrated. This vessel is the body, and if the body is intoxicated, fragmented, distracted, no alchemy is possible. Paracelsus, 16th century physician and alchemist, said, "The body is the laboratory of the spirit, and the blood is its mercury." The blood carries memories, emotions, traumas, and visions. Breath is the fire that heats this internal cauldron. Food is the raw material of transmutation. Sleep, the stage of dissolution. Nothing is banal. Everything is ritual. Modern science, though blind to deeper mysteries, is already glimpsing fragments of this wisdom. Epigenetics has revealed that our emotions, environments, and mental states directly affect gene expression. The body is moldable, influenced not only by matter, but by consciousness. What the ancients called vibration and vital fluid, we are beginning to understand as electromagnetic fields, cellular frequencies, and biophotonics. But the Hermeticist does not need scientific validation to recognize the body as a sacred instrument. He feels it, he listens to it, he honors it. That's why to live as a Hermeticist in modern life is to slow the gesture, to be present while chewing, bathing, walking, to make stretching a ritual of opening subtle channels, to make rest an offering to the spirit dwelling in the flesh. It's not about obsessing over health or worshiping aesthetics. It's about making the body capable of containing the fire. Because when the energy of spirit begins to circulate, an unprepared body breaks. Many aspirants to magic burn out not because the practice is dangerous, but because the body is not purified enough to conduct the current. Hence the importance of breath as hermetic practice. Breathing is the most direct way to align body, mind, and spirit. It is the breath of the all within us. And by breathing with attention, long, deep, silent, we open subtle channels that had atrophied. The prana of the Hindus, the pneuma of the Greeks, the ruach of the Hebrews, all point to the same mystery. There is something in the air that is more than air. There is spirit. In ancient hermetic rituals, breath preceded all invocation, and this was no coincidence. Breath establishes the field. It is the first step toward transmutation. The body, then, is the hidden laboratory where eternal elements intertwine. Earth, solidified in the bones, gives structure. Water, flowing in the blood, carries memory. Fire, manifested in vital impulse and the force of desire, ignites movement. Air, entering and leaving through breath, bridges the visible and the invisible. And ether, silent in consciousness, sustains the secret unity between all. By understanding the body as a temple, we understand that everything we put into the body is an offering. What we feel in the body is a teaching. What we do with the body is ritual. There is no spirituality separate from flesh, no transcendence without conscious incarnation. Hermes Trismegistus reminds us, all is one, and the one reveals itself in all. And the first place this one reveals itself is in this body, this temporary house, this portable temple, this clay vessel that, when purified, can hold the wine of the gods. And thus, the modern Hermeticist walks among men. If the body is the temple, the mind is the altar, where the flame of spirit is either lit or extinguished. And like any altar, it can be a place of consecration or of desecration. It all depends on what is placed upon it. In Hermetic teaching, the mind is not the enemy of the spirit, but neither is it its natural ally. It is neutral, and therefore dangerous. The Kybalion opens with the law of mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental. To understand this is not an intellectual exercise, it is a call to supreme responsibility. If the universe is mental, then everything we experience is a reflection of the structure of our own mind. Reality, at this level, is a mirror. But a mirror can only reflect clearly if it is clean. And the modern mind is cloudy, fogged by noise, inherited beliefs, undigested memories, and unexamined desires. We think, but most of the time, we simply react. The modern mind is a house where guests have settled uninvited, and the owner has forgotten he is the owner. To live as a Hermeticist is, above all, to reclaim sovereignty over this inner space. It is to look at one's own mind with the attention of an initiatic gardener, one who does not judge the weed, but neither allows it to grow unchecked. The Hermeticist observes, and by observing, transforms. Silence, as previously discussed, prepares the soil, but discernment is what cultivates the right seeds. Here the mind reveals itself not only as mirror, but also as sword. The sword cuts. The sword separates. The sword defines limits. And the Hermeticist, wielding the sword of a trained mind, cuts through illusions as one cuts through veils, one by one, without haste but with precision. Illusions about the self, the world, the other, and about God. For only those who pierce the veils can behold the real. Plato, heir of Hermetic thought through the Pythagorean and Orphic lineage, taught that the soul must remember, for all true knowledge is remembrance. The mind, in this process, must be disciplined not to accumulate more information, but to remove the debris that blocks this remembrance. The Hermetic mind is not a library, it is clarity. And this is not a rejection of reason. Quite the opposite. Reason, when purified by silence and guided by intuition, becomes an ally of revelation. Hermes never separated the rational from the spiritual, he integrated them. But reason must not govern, it must serve. Depth psychology, especially in the work of Carl Gustav Jung, who was deeply influenced by both Gnosticism and Hermeticism, also reveals this path. Jung wrote, "Enlightenment does not come from imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The Hermetic mind does not flee the shadow, it studies it, because it knows the gold of consciousness is hidden in the mud of the unconscious. In the Hermeticist's mental laboratory, each thought is analyzed like a reagent. What does it produce? Expansion or contraction, clarity or confusion, love or fear. The Hermeticist does not identify with his thoughts. He contemplates them, and through contemplation, he transforms them into useful symbols for the work. Practices such as Socratic self-questioning, the use of archetypes, dream symbolism, and even modern tools like journaling and active imagination can all serve the Hermeticist, if used with pure intention and sharp attention. The mind is like a crystal. It can focus light or scatter it, depending on the angle. But there is a point beyond. The mind is also a portal. When purified, silenced, and aligned with the heart, it opens to higher levels of reality, not as fantasy, but as expanded perception. It is at this point that the mind becomes an instrument of gnosis, direct, intuitive, unquestionable knowledge. And this gnosis is not theory, it is living experience. The mind that reflects with perfection and cuts with precision becomes an instrument of the higher will. It no longer serves the ego nor desire, it serves the all. And in that state, the mind ceases to be a battlefield. It becomes a field of creation, a mirror that reflects the divine with clarity, a sword that defends truth with firmness. The modern Hermeticist, then, does not flee the mind. He purifies it, sharpens it, aligns it, and when the time comes, he leaves it behind, like a tool that has fulfilled its function. Will is the fire that animates. It is what transforms knowledge into path, intuition into action, intention into destiny. In the Hermetic tradition, will is not desire. It is flame, a flame that does not extinguish with the winds of doubt or the rains of the world. A flame that, once lit, seeks only one thing, to accomplish the work. And what is the work? The work is what placed you in this world. It is not a choice, but a calling. It is not a career or a mission or a project. It is destiny. The will of man, when aligned with the mind of the all, moves heaven and earth. This is not metaphor. This is a cosmic principle. Will is the point where the microcosm and macrocosm meet. It is the ray of the divine spark infiltrating matter. But this will is not born ready. It is forged. Like alchemical fire, it begins impure, mixed with desires, fears, ambitions, and noise. That is why every true Hermetic path requires, at some point, the purification of will. And that purification is fire. Fire that burns hesitation, consumes the ego, reduces illusion to ashes. In the Corpus Hermeticum it is said, "You shall not attain the Most High while your will is divided." The Hermeticist knows this. He knows that every choice is a renunciation. In modern life, where distractions fight for attention like hungry beasts, keeping will aligned is an act of superior magic. The contemporary world seeks to fragment the self. It demands productivity without purpose, opinion without silence, movement without direction. The Hermeticist, however, swims against this current. He does not live by inertia. He lives by decision. True will is not imposed. It is heard. It does not scream. It calls. And it is in silence that this calling is revealed. Often, it comes as unease, as misalignment, as a persistent intuition. And once embraced, it offers no guarantees, only an inner certainty. This is the path. Not the easiest, not the fastest, but the true one. Aleister Crowley, so misunderstood yet deeply hermetic, wrote, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." The will he invokes is not whim. It is true will, that which springs from the soul's core and does not bend to fear or trend. To find that will is to find oneself before any name, before any story. It is to touch that which created you and pulses within as a silent impulse to be. And how does this will manifest in daily life? Through the work. For the Hermeticist, life is not a collection of experiences. It is a construction. A continuous act of transmutation where everything, absolutely everything, is raw material. Encounters, pain, failure, ecstasy. Nothing is wasted. Everything serves. Each day he shapes his reality like one working the furnace of a secret laboratory. Not from an obsession with control, but from reverence for creation. The Hermeticist's work may be silent and invisible. It may not attract applause, but it is felt. His presence alters atmospheres. His words reorganize fields. His actions are symbols. And it is not about achieving great deeds. It is about coherence. True will expresses itself even in the simplest gesture. In how one listens, in how one walks, in the care of one's words. There are no small acts for those who live ritually. The Heart Math Institute has shown that clear intention and coherence between mind and emotion affect not only individual physiology, but also the electromagnetic field around the body. The field of will exists, and it organizes reality the way a magnet organizes iron filings. In practice, this means that conscious will not only moves the individual, it reorganizes the world around them. But this is only possible when there is alignment, when thought, feeling, word, and action move in the same direction. And that is rare. That is why it is powerful. When will is purified, it becomes offering. It no longer seeks to conquer, but to serve. It no longer wishes to dominate, but to express the all. And then, life becomes work. Not metaphorically, but hermetically. The great work. The magnum opus that transforms dense being into a being of light. Lead into gold. Spark into sun. The modern Hermeticist, then, is not the one who knows many secrets, but the one who has consecrated his life to a single purpose, to live the truth. And will is his vehicle, his fire, his flaming sword. He walks the world with simplicity, but in his steps, there is power. He does not flee matter. He redeems it. He does not deny the world. He consecrates it. Because he knows that spirit only reveals itself fully when incarnated in totality. In the end, the true Hermeticist does not seek to escape life. He seeks to transfigure it. Thank you for watching.